Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
All right, so what are we talking about today? We talked about Cassie and Diddy last time, but I told you about this Adult Survivors Act. So now we're seeing that this is the last day to file. I know tomorrow is a day as well, but that's Thanksgiving. A lot of courts are going to be closed. So today is the day, and we're seeing a flurry of lawsuits. So I want to go over those responsibly and talk. Let me let everybody fall in here. Don't the turkey up trying to watch Tone Talks. How's everybody doing today? This is Tone Talks coming to you today. As you know, I'm a licensed attorney here in Los Angeles. I'm not here to give legal advice, but I am here to give my own analysis legally on some of what we're seeing, and also to give a responsible landing place. So much of our YouTube space, I've argued, is just full of people that dropped out of high school or have very limited education, but it also begs to gender war, kind of manosphere, feminism, kind of discussion around topics like this that need to be dealt with responsibly. And in addition, it becomes like celebrity gossip because a lot of people are hooked into the 90s and it's over for the concerts and all that shit. Let that shit go. So that's not what today is, for you to gossip and remember when you went to the R. Kelly concert and he said something to you wrong. Today is a day to just read the legal filings and let the legal filings speak for themselves, and then let the people defend themselves. But I wanted to go through the volume of them, because what I don't want to hear is all black men or all men. And what I also don't want to hear is they just want the money. Neither of those things are things you can prove. So you got to sit the fuck down and shut up on this Thanksgiving and just realize there's a lot going on today. Can I talk? Because I don't want to hear no gossip on Thanksgiving about sexual assault from somebody who worked at the clerk's office or who drive a bus. I don't want to hear your opinion on how legally will fall out if you do the McDonald's burgers. This ain't that. So let this play out. Don't be telling me about all men and don't be telling me about all women. Talk about these specific cases, and I think you have to be specifically sensitive to the victims, men and women, of this. And I have one that's a man. It's a white man, but it's a man nonetheless. And it begs to question how many men are silent that needed to come out in the last year due to their own belief and pride and self. And that's kind of what I wanted to say too, is like, if you were a victim of this, I believe that, and it's gonna be late for this filing, but you should speak out and you should let people know that you're traumatized behind what happened to you. So let's talk about today. Hollywood Reporter, why a wave of high-profile sexual assault lawsuits is arriving now. About 2,700 complaints have been filed under New York's Adult Survivors Act during one-year look-back window that opened last Thanksgiving. So what are we talking about? And I talked about it last show. We're talking about this right here. So what led to Cassie's lawsuit in New York is leading to a flurry of other lawsuits. I wouldn't doubt that many people received propositions, negotiated settlements, and they ignored this for a year, believing it would go away. And that's kind of why we're hearing this on the last day. What happened was New York believed these are sensitive cases and gave a window for people to dig back and to bring claims that are past statute civilly. The Adult Survivors Act is New York State's legislation enacted in May 2022, which amends state law to allow alleged victims of sexual offenses for which the statute of limitations has lapsed to file civil suits for a 1-year period, from November 24, 2022 to November 24, 2023. And as you know, today is the 22nd and Thursday is the 23rd, so that you can come back in the day after Thanksgiving. But many courts, as in LA, the county courts here, are actually closed on Friday. So today effectively becomes that last day in many courts across this country, and it might be that way in New York. So why a wave of high-profile sexual assault lawsuits is arriving now? 310-388-3499. Please subscribe, share this video. Let's have a responsible discussion. Let's not make this celebrity gossip. Let's not add our own opinions, which comes from nowhere of expertise. Let's just look at this thing and ask ourselves, how did we get here? So 310-388-3499 to actually call in if you want your voice to be heard. Please be responsible with your voice. There are victims out there. There is a responsible discussion that we need to have. I believe that's my responsibility, both as a Black professional and as one of the Black thought leaders in the political space, to give that landing space so that we don't end up in a place of gender war chaos. And so that's what I'm just doing today. And I wanted to go through some of these lawsuits as the flurry comes in, because I've seen several, and people tend to read the headlines. And we're going to go through the specific cases. We have Marcellus Wiley, we have Citibank executive there, we have somebody who worked for Bloomberg, we have Bill Cosby with another accusation. So let's talk about those today. But before we get to that, let's read into this article why a wave of high-profile sexual assault lawsuits is arriving now. If it seems like the music industry is facing a moment of reckoning this month, lawsuits were filed against Sean Diddy Combs, music mogul L.A. Reid, and ex-Grammy CEO Neil Portnow. It might be, but it's likely that these cases are making headlines all at once. Because a New York law that suspends time constraints on claims involving alleged sex offenses is about to expire. Let me say something. It's just my personal view. I believe that if you as the victim want to bring the civil lawsuit, when the police or the detectives come to you for the criminal lawsuit, I believe that should be part of it. And everybody has to answer that themselves. I believe that you have an obligation to stand up and make sure these people serve the sentences that they deserve and not just disappear under the NDA and some kind of settlement. But I'll leave that there. All three of those high-profile cases were filed under New York's Adult Survivors Act, which opened a one-year look-back period during which civil claims that would have otherwise been barred by statute of limitations could be filed. Gibson Dunn litigator Brian Archer previously told the Hollywood Reporter that courts tend to get a bunch of right-of-way and then a lot right at the end of the period. So the end of the period is Friday, but because of Thanksgiving Thursday, what will end up happening is that Friday, many courts will be closed, and it's that way in Los Angeles County. It might be that way in New York as well. That seems to be the case in New York and mirrors what happened in late 2022 in California, as a crush of cases were filed before the end of a 3-year window that allows child sexual assault survivors to sue their abusers. According to New York State's court's data, there have been about 2,700 cases filed under the ASA so far, about 1,200 of those cases in the state Supreme Court and 1,500 in the Court of Claims, which oversees civil cases seeking damages against the state of New York and state agencies. Among them are claims involving the entertainment industry figures like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and James Toback, but the vast majority are non-Hollywood cases against government entities, hospitals, churches, and schools. So again, also procedurally, if you were to wait till Friday, and presuming that their courts are open Friday, which I don't believe so, but if they were, that is a dangerous thing to do, because you never know with your filing whether it doesn't get taken that morning or anything of the sort. It's definitely closed Thursday because Thanksgiving is Thursday, but you just would file today. Today would be the day to file, if not earlier than today. Again, we're talking about the Adult Survivors Act, and we're talking about it in context of Cassie and Diddy, but also this larger wave of sexual assault lawsuits you'll start to see coming out of New York City and New York, the state, and we'll see some of those cases today. But before I get to those, let's get to this Cassie settlement. So I told you in the last show that I believe that there should be criminal charges, and I still believe they should look into that. And if they find evidence of this stuff, there should be criminal charges against Sean Combs, Puff Daddy. But Cassie settled, and I believe that she should step up and testify in those cases. I can't make her, nor can any of us, but I believe she should. But if she doesn't mean it didn't happen. Now, in addition, I'm seeing like this pseudo-intellectual, this non-professional analysis that comes out of like this bravado and this manosphere that is just borderline crazy. It shows no understanding of what just happened. And this, again, is just my opinion. In my opinion, you settle that lawsuit the day before, not the day after. once the document comes out and she has what she has on the internet, for those people that don't know, I'm not asking you to go look at this young girl on the internet, but I'm telling you it's a lot on the internet. You defend your reputation and you vehemently oppose this and you take it to discovery. For him to settle the day after is not a net win for Puff Daddy in my view. So for you as a black man to take that out of it, you have comprehension skill issues. Period. Look, let me explain. So there's a filing. In the filing, she is, and this isn't like a person that he met one time. This is a person he's known for a decade, possibly, if not more. In the filing, she makes specific allegations. The reason you settle before is because then the filing never comes out and nobody sees those allegations. Once she files and those allegations are listed, there's literally limited benefit of reputational, like, I guess, protection for you in settling that soon. So for him to settle today, I'm not saying it means that he's saying that he did these things. What I am saying is that the net benefit is not the same unless you believe she has more stuff. So for you to take away what I'm about to read to you, there's something wrong with how you are comprehending your first language, which is English. You don't have, so many of you don't have a second one. So then how do we talk? I need to talk today because I just want to break this down because I didn't understand what people were talking about the other day with the settlement and how they saw the settlement as non-lawyers. Gravy PhD. Diddy ain't going nowhere. Took that girl one day to give in. Sean Diddy, Combs, and Cassie reached settlement day after lawsuit accused him of rape. I said, damn, these Google search superhero people ramble. Your loss. Give in, question. Let me help. Since you're so damn lost and not an attorney, that filing is met with a prolonged discovery process, particularly given all the wild evidence she has on the internet. You settle that days, weeks, months before, so we never see that filing or even know it's going to happen. Once it happens, this is so reputationally damaging that you defend yourself vehemently, and you know the implications if you do settle mean that people are going to presume guilt, let alone it's going to signal to other people that they can bring lawsuits in the same way. White flag. Now, also, there's another element here. If you have professional guidance that there's going to be a flurry of other lawsuits, yours will not be individually digested by the court of public opinion. It might be like among the top. It's even more so a reason for you to prolong this and actually say, this is a whole thing going on, not just me. But he did not do that. So for you to believe what you said, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, in the suit, also, to the ignorance of this man, Gravy PhD, there is also a statement by her lawyer, and not confirmed, of an eight-figure settlement offer that was turned down. I'm just telling you, she was initially asking for 30 and she turned down 8. So let's say that she turned down 10, she asked for 30. Take what you take from that. All of this is allegations. But let's get into the flurry of other lawsuits that we're seeing right now that I really wanted to frame. 310-388-3499 to talk today. Can I talk 360? Because we're hearing a lot of bravado. We're hearing a lot of Google internet lawyers. I talked to another lawyer, and initially, what he said initially, I'm talking about almost instantaneously, was he never seen that before, where you settled just the next day and you didn't do a discovery. She made some of the most heinous allegations against him that you will see in a civil case outside of physical murder or something like that. So no, you don't get to settle as Diddy. You got to go to the mat. You gotta go to the mat for your reputation, unless you think she got other stuff, or she's just my view. This is just my view. Former Bad Boy president labeled sued for sexual assault negligence. An ex-assistant, come on, let's get into it, to Harvey Pierre claims that he used his position of authority as her boss to groom, exploit, and sexually assault her. So you have these men in positions of power, black, white, and other, and they leverage this position of power. You also see it from men to men. We don't have as many cases of women to men, but we do see that as well. But you often see these positions of power used and leveraged because people believe they are above the law. Less than a week after Sean Diddy comes, and again, these are all allegations, was accused of rape and sex trafficking by R&B singer Cassie. A longtime executive at his company, Bad Boy Entertainment, is being sued for allegedly grooming and sexually assaulting his assistant, Harvey Pierre. The former president of Bad Boy, who met Diddy when they were students together at Howard, is accused of preying on the Jane Doe plaintiff on multiple occasions in New York City and other locations throughout the country. The complaint filed in New York County Supreme Court and obtained by Rolling Stone reads, Pierre used his position of authority as plaintiff's boss to groom, exploit, and sexually assault her, the filings allege. Pierre engaged in a year-long pattern of grooming plaintiff, leading to sexual harassment of plaintiff and sexual assault. The anonymous assistant alleges Pierre sexually assaulted her on multiple occasions from 2016 to 2017, and as a result, she suffered physical, emotional, and psychological injuries, along with pain and suffering. The woman is asking for damages that will fully and fairly compensate her. Pierre did not immediately reply to a request for comment. I'm guessing Rolling Stone asked for that request. The lawsuit also names Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records, and Combs Enterprises as co-defendants, accusing the companies of negligence and gender violence. Defendants knew or should have known that Pierre was unfit to be in a position of authority before Pierre sexually assaulted plaintiff. So I guess what her argument is that he was acting in the position of president of Bad Boy, and therefore Bad Boy is also tied in. Defendant knew or should have known that Pierre was unfit to be in a position of authority before Pierre sexually assaulted plaintiff. The lawsuit states it claims the company failed to properly supervise Pierre, especially considering his access to individuals like plaintiff. A Bad Boy spokesperson tells Rolling Stone that we have recently become aware of a lawsuit filed in New York by a former employee. The allegations are from many years ago that were never brought to the attention of the company. Neither the plaintiff nor the executive are current employees of the company. We are now investigating the allegations, and our top priority is the safety and well-being of our employees. So what we're talking about today, again, is this wave of high-profile sexual assault lawsuits that are coming in now the day before filing ends for the Adult Survivors Act in New York. That Adult Survivors Act allowed people to bring older claims for a 1-year window. And a lot of people probably brushed this under the rug thinking it went away, and they having a bad day before Thanksgiving as a result. Everybody that thought that this settlement meant Diddy did well, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I just want to have a discussion today about people's feelings on all of these cases. I know it's the day before Thanksgiving, so this is heavy, but I want to give a responsible space versus having everyone giving the random opinions about whether they think it happened or not, what they done heard, who they know that might have known something from somewhere. Read the document or at least the article and let that speak for itself. You are not an expert and you don't have personal experience. I want to talk today. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. I think the thing about the settlement is that settlement so quickly definitely removed the story from the news cycle so that it won't be as discussed, coming up presently and in the future. But I think that what happens is, and this is something that you point out, that you have people that are not necessarily educated to a high degree. Like Tucky was definitely a college dropout. I mean, definitely didn't make it past Whoopi Goldberg stage, but he's a college dropout. And when people are not groomed in that professional space, in that educational space, in that social space, in that professional space, they may continue to act in ways that are immature. They may continue to act and how they were socialized when they were in that first year of college or in that last year of high school. They don't, along with that educational piece, also comes that socialization piece as well. So I think this could be speaking to that.
You know what's interesting? I was watching YouTube, this channel called Donut, and they had a lawyer on, and they were talking about the laws. The lawyer spoke to the laws. The other people were the jokes. I think what's happening. I watched this other thing in the same evening last night of 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne, and Oprah and Gayle are interviewing them. I think what we've done is we've elevated 2 Chainz like they're not the entertainment section, and then we'll let Cardi B talk about the politics. And this race really is confused about what success is because they took out all the success from actual things that are successful. So in a functional society, you're supposed to want to be the architect that builds the buildings. You're supposed to want to be the general that leads the armies. You're supposed to be a farmer that produces the food. No, they made y'all want to be the producers of entertainment. Gimmicky entertainment.
Yes. I mean, entertainer or sports or athlete, which is a form of entertainment also. But again, like you said, we have no professional class. We have no class of people that are successful in a professional level. Like you said, we don't have the architects, we don't have the engineers, we don't have the medical professionals, we don't have the whatever, healthcare professionals, executives. We don't have that. And because we don't have that, we don't ascribe to be that, and we don't realize what it takes to be that. We don't realize the level of professionalism.
And also we find that less attractive as a result. It's fun to be around. I heard the dude on the rap on the Gayle Oprah interview. It came out yesterday. It's the weirdest thing ever. And then he's like, I spent half my 20s. This is the last verse. I'm in jail. I spent my half. I wrote on mass incarceration. I'm not saying this to down people that have been incarcerated, but that's a vast difference from elevating that next to a national interview that gives the framework of the identity of a race. I don't think y'all understand what you find attractive might be the trash of a society. And I'm not calling people that go to jail trash, but like you actually, I'm talking about, and this goes out to the women sometimes. The very thing that you find attractive is failure. It's the collapse of a society. You like the taste of burnt meat because you don't know no better. You've been living in the backdrop of these videos on music channels for so long, and there ain't no success in terms of Black people owning nothing. So our lawyers don't make no money. Our doctors don't have private practices. So you've been back to these people, but they lying. They don't have no money. We find out that they don't, but they willing to tell you that they do. Go ahead.
The thing I definitely want to harp on is and I'm going to make this euphemism, the social discipline that comes with education.
Come on.
There's a social discipline. You can't just be trying to knock off any attractive woman that you see when you're in college because you have to study. And you have to realize the discipline that it takes, the social sacrifice, and the social discipline that it takes to work in a professional field. It's not easy. Like, you have to know how to compose and comport yourself to that environment. And we don't have examples of that. And these things that we're seeing with the 2 guys that you mentioned are examples of that. They never had to learn that social discipline. They never had to learn that social sacrifice in order to.
Yeah, I don't want to. Let me bring it back. So, as a Black man, you brought it up earlier about the news and the settlement. The problem that happens is that works much better if the person is unknown. If the person is known and there's an Adult Survivors Act, it doesn't go away. And also, if you are known and they know you have money and you may have done other things, it actually signals way more that other people to bring the lawsuit because you're not going to fight tooth and nail. So there's not as much value there as it is for, say, a regular, say, dentist or somebody else to actually just get rid of this because it's going to be here now. And it's going to be presumed that you actually are guilty. So actually it falls the other way to actually deal with this thing after the complaint. Now, before the complaint, you're actually right, in my view.
again, I don't want to really touch on that. I just want to say that because you're right about that. I see your point.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that because of the lack of examples of professional decorum and social discipline, that's what this.
You remember when Dr. King was in his 30s? Dr. King was in his 30s. You remember what he looked like? People forget that. Like I'm not, no disrespect. He was a young man. He was like a kid for me now. So like I'm in my 40s, and I'm not saying that to disrespect him, but like no, he wasn't he died as a young man. Y'all forget that because of how he looked. This is what you're speaking to. Caller, I'm gonna let you go. I got a full queue. That started it off well. But I want to get back to the topic about these abuses. Thank you so much, caller. We went through the bad boy. I don't want to just talk about black men. We're going to talk about white men too. We're going to talk about men abusing men. The victim can be a man. There's an allegation out there. New York Jets icon Joe Namath allegedly allowed sexual abuse at his camps. This man comes out, and we can't allow men to not be victims, because then what we don't get is the full picture. You wonder why so many men can't see this is because we did not create a space where they can land their victimhood. And I'm not saying that each of us don't try to do that, but have we really created equality with victimhood? Philip Lyle Smith, 64, says he was sexually abused by a high school football coach at Namath's camps in 1970s, according to the suit. The Florida State real estate broker is accusing New York Jets Joe Namath of turning a blind eye to sexual abuse he endured at Namath's football camps in the 70s, according to the man's lawsuit. Philip Lyle Smith, 64, said he was victimized at the summer retreats by Philip Fogetta, the longtime football coach at Poly Prep Country Day School in Brooklyn, who died in 1998. Namath and co-defendants John Dockery, a former Jets defensive back, and Nichols College in Massachusetts, the sites of the camp, should have seen obvious warning signs. Let me say one thing. There is a danger here. What happens is, the reason there is a statute of limitations in normal cases is because evidentiary proof that the defendant may use to defend themselves gets old. And when you have no statute of limitations, which just kind of sets out for 1 year, while the goal is to give the victim more space, the question becomes, do you give so much space that the defendant can't defend themselves? And in this case, that might be true. The man is dead. So the man is dead, but you're here to tell the story. And that is the balancing act of when you open up windows this way and you allow for perpetual statute of limitations. We've seen that with murder, but at least there'll be DNA that we never knew under the nails, because that moment, oftentimes, they're a cold case and they find the body, and they can use the DNA to connect the person as if it was the day after. With these kind of cases, not a person kept living. So there is no hard evidence unless there's video or there's photos. But nonetheless, I'm not saying that this didn't happen. I'm just saying that the man that it happened from is now dead, so he can't even defend himself. When Smith said Namath and Dockery ran the camp under the company of Pro Camps Limited, which is also a defendant, according to the lawsuit, from 1970 to 1977, when Smith was 10 to 17. Fogetta subjected Smith to a continuous course of sexual conduct that included, and I don't want to get specific, but you can read it there, grooming, sexual conduct, other forms of sexual abuse. And we all got to be leery of this thing. But I just wanted to show first, and I got several instances that this isn't just black men on black women. This isn't just men on women. This is a perpetual issue across genders that needs to be rooted out of our society. And we got to deal with it. And I commend New York for doing this. And the question now becomes, can we allow these things to be allegations? Do we understand what an allegation is? And also, do we understand that we might not understand? Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
KB from New York. Actually, I'm an attorney that worked in the legislature and pushed for this particular legislation, and I'm just going to give you the history behind why.
Thank you.
There was a huge lobby. So there was a huge lobby.
Can I frame you real quick? Can I frame you, because I want to make sure everybody heard what she said.
Sure.
So we have a wonderful expert that actually is an attorney that pushed for this legislation, this Adult Survivors Act, and she's going to explain to us today why they pushed for this And maybe you can put that in context of what I just talked about, the balancing beam of everything. Go ahead.
Yes, so in New York, what we found was a lot of children who were abused at the hands of, and I'm not sure if I can say this on YouTube, but it was the Catholic Church and other religious institutions that we had a lot of victims coming out and lobbying for the ability to sue. And of course, being that, the church is very powerful in government. I don't know if everyone knows that, but that's the truth. And there was a lot of pushback as to the statute of limitation, and it landed on what it is today. So the intent was to actually give the victims of certain religious communities the ability to bring forth suits because of what we were seeing with a lot of the priests and the young boys and so forth. And there was a huge mental health assessment that was done. A lot of psychological work was produced to the legislature. I actually worked with the state legislature at the time, and we learned that people who go through trauma, a lot of times their brain actually doesn't develop until, around 25. And this is just general, but when you are traumatized, it actually makes you, how do you say, like regress, if you will, and you don't have the ability to bring forth and speak out due to, many factors. And we took all of that into consideration in creating the statute of limitation. Is there a risk? Yes. But when we weighed the risk to the benefit, we said that pushing for an extended statute of limitation would actually be beneficial. And many lawyers in the state of New York actually agree with it based upon the level of sexual abuse that we saw in certain institutions. Entertainment and politics obviously has an issue because of the power and control dynamics that we often see. And of course, it does have its risks, and I can't speak to the Diddy situation, but what I am going to say is to settle so quickly is a little different. In my experience as a lawyer in New York, although I'm more in the corporate side of things now, but it is still strange, and it does open the door for a lot more to happen. And that's all I have to say. So
I do have a question. I do have a procedural question. I'm not asking you anything that will get you with your actual work. What my procedural question is, how will the courts there deal with the volume of these lawsuits? Here we're talking about 2,700 complaints. Are we talking about like a now an extended 5-year window, or have you guys not even thought about that, of these trials coming 4 and 5 years from now?
So to be completely honest, and just again, I'm gonna choose my words wisely.
Yes, I understand.
When the legislature creates laws, and it doesn't, I'm not just saying this law. A lot of times they create it due to the lobbying effort, and it doesn't necessarily deal with the unfunded mandate aspect. So many laws, whether it's this or even education laws, there isn't a money that is set aside to deal with the ramifications of society. New York courts are backlogged. We have issues just with regular criminal, complaints and family law complaints. So it's an issue. We know this. And unfortunately, the consideration wasn't dealt with in a manner that makes a lot of sense, because we also have an issue with not having enough attorneys for indigent clients. And, and we just raised the fees for A2B attorneys in New York after billions of years. So it wasn't really considered as much as it should have been.
Oh, and the last question. I'm sorry, I know I said the last one. Are you guys open Friday?
Open Friday in New York?
Meaning, is today the last day, or is Friday the last day? Because I know here in LA, they're closed Thursday and Friday. This is just something that's probably easy for you to answer, or maybe it's not. Because if they're closed Friday, today is the last day to file.
I'm not certain if the federal courts are closed on Friday. See, I'm a little pushed away from the court system. I know that they close a little early, but I'm not certain if it's fully closed. I don't know if they actually reserve that for.
And then maybe they allow. I think it would be dangerous to wait till Friday, given it's Thanksgiving. Today would be that day, and we're seeing it. So stay tuned in. There's going to be there's a lot of cases coming out. I'm gonna go through some of those cases. Thank you so much. I think the audience really appreciated your expertise. 310-388-3499. That was a wonderful call. Thank you so much for calling in and giving us your expertise, and thank you for putting this act together. She said she helped write this act. You know, the Adult Survivors Act is New York State legislation enacted in May 2022, which amends state law to allow alleged victims of sexual offenses for which the statute of limitations has lapsed to file civil suits for a 1-year period from November 2022 to November 2023. And I'm just telling you, like, it's unheard of kind of, you know, they did something in California for children, but this is an unheard of window that was open, and you might see a lot of cases coming over the next day. So Cosby, basically somebody brought an alleged case for Cosby alleged abuse dating to 1980s under expiring New York Survivors Act. A woman who worked as a stand-in at the Cosby Show in the 80s is suing Bill Cosby, saying he drugged and sexually abused her. Again, these are allegations. A woman who worked as a stand-in at the Cosby Show in the 80s said in a lawsuit Tuesday that Bill Cosby drugged and sexually abused her, offering to mentor her in her acting career. It is the latest in a string of lawsuits filed against Cosby under New York's expiring Adult Survivors Act, which has given victims of sexual abuse a 1-year window for claims that would otherwise be barred by time limits. That window closes on Thanksgiving. The anonymous accuser said that soon after the meeting, Cosby, while working on his show, he started offering style tips and performing acting exercises with her in her dressing room. She accepted, she said, in part because of Cosby's wholesome image as America's dad, according to the lawsuit. Once there, she said she blacked out during an acting exercise after drinking wine, apparently laced with an intoxicant. She awoke partially undressed and vomiting in the toilet, according to the lawsuit in the state Supreme Court in New York. An identified actor on the show later expressed to her that Cosby could do whatever he wanted to do with impunity at the Cosby Show, according to the lawsuit, which seeks damages for battery, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and false imprisonment. NBC University, along with Kaufman Astoria Studios and the Carnegie Winter Studio company, are accused in the lawsuit. They did not immediately respond. So these are, and I'm not just doing blacks, I'm doing all races, but I'm doing the stories that I caught that came out, and there was several that came out, and I just wanted to read them because I don't want you guys just to read the headlines. If you want to speak on this, 310-388-3499. My only request is that you be responsible with your words, because there are people out here, and some of them may be victims that are listening. Some of them may be the people who wrote the bill, and they don't deserve to be lambasted, nor made to feel like it's their fault or that they did anything wrong. Let's get to the truth. Photographer accuses former Bloomberg campaign strategist of sexual assault. An aspiring photographer claims she was, and this is the man here, I believe, that's who's in the photo on the Daily Beast. An aspiring photographer claims she was sexually assaulted by the then New York City mayoral candidate Mike Bloomberg's top media strategist at the billionaire businessman's campaign headquarters during his 2001 run for local office. The alleged assault came just 3 days after 9/11, according to a bombshell lawsuit filed Monday by Massachusetts resident Petra Christina Better, who says she was still shell-shocked from snapping pics at Ground Zero when well-known Democratic operative Dwayne Baldwin suddenly attacked her. The alleged assault came just 3 days after 9/11, according to a bombshell lawsuit filed Monday by Massachusetts resident Petra Better, who says she's still shell-shocked. As Better bent down to look for the Coke at the bottom shelf of the refrigerator, Baldwin suddenly came behind her, grabbed her head, and pushed her crotch into the side of her face. Better felt Baldwin's penis pushed into her face, close to her mouth. Baldwin pushed Better's head towards like you wanted her to perform oral sex. So all these are the cases coming out, and they have different levels of issue. What I will say is that rape in New York, as we covered in the last show, it had a statute. That's not rape, but like what was accused by Cassie has a statute of limitations for third degree of 10 years and for second degree of 20 years. They extended it from 5 years. So if there are accusations of rape, as we saw with Cassie, what we can deal with is the potential of a criminal lawsuit by Cassie or anyone else who falls within that window, which is very wide. So 20 years takes us back to 2003, 10 years takes us about to 13. So if they find people who Diddy raped or are willing to bring those claims, they can bring criminal charges. And Cassie said hers happened in 2018, so it falls well within the window, depending on the degree. her rape that she alleged. So I need to talk about this thing. I want to talk about it responsibly. We had some great callers so far. I know that it's Thanksgiving weekend, or we coming into it, but I wanted to have this discussion because there's a lot of these filings that are going to come out, and there's going to be a lot of salacious YouTube channels that are by people that are not lawyers having a gossipy gender war conversation, whereas I want to have a legal conversation, and I appreciate that last call that anchors that kind of level of conversation where we must commend people like that one young woman, I believe she's Black, for doing the work out here and giving voices to the victims. And then also I think she was considering the ability for defendants to defend themselves, and that's the balancing beam. NFL alum and former ESPN host Marcellus Wiley is sued over an alleged rape at Columbia University in 1994. Plaintiff claims Ivy League football star forced her face down and took her virginity in a freshman dorm. Wiley's actions were intentionally designed to cause plaintiff severe emotional distress, or were taken with reckless disregard of the significant and or substantial probability of causing plaintiff severe emotional distress, the lawsuit states. Wiley would go on to be a second-round pick by the Buffalo Bills in 97, embarking on a decorated 10-year career. He went on to become an ESPN and Fox analyst before launching his own podcast. And his wife is on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Retired NFL defensive lineman and ESPN host Marcellus Wiley is being sued for allegedly raping a student at the Columbia University while he attended the Ivy League school in 94. Now an Ivy League professor and sociologist, the alleged victim is suing the 48-year-old Wiley in New York Supreme Court, claiming that he forced himself on her in a freshman dormitory on the Manhattan campus. The plaintiff claims that she and Wiley were friends prior to the fall of 94 when he invited himself into her dorm room in Upper Manhattan, saying that he wanted to have dinner together and listen to music. She says she made it clear to Wiley that she was uninterested in sex because she was a virgin. Initially, she claims in the lawsuit, Wiley agreed. Ain't nobody trying to have sex with no virgin, he allegedly said. Don't worry, I got you. Just come up to hang out while I eat. I don't even have condoms on me. However, according to the filing obtained by the Post, Wiley began to rip her clothes off after entering the room and forced her face down into the mattress before raping her multiple times. The plaintiff claims she feared for her life and struggled to breathe during the attack. These are the cases that are coming out. These are all allegations. Now, I come back to it. If this was deemed second or third degree, this is an example of a case that would be out of statute for criminal charges. So unlike Diddy's that was in 2018, this is in 94. And 94 is, what is it? That's like 30 years ago. And I say this to you because this is the other issue with allowing these claims that I was discussing with the attorney earlier is you have people bringing civil claims 30 years later as a result of this window, and you begin to ask the question, how can Marcellus Wiley ever get his reputation back? Because this now, and how can he defend himself if now 30 years later, he can't tell you exactly, he can't get, like, let's say he was out to eat that day. He was somewhere else. There's a receipt that was on his credit card that could show he was not at her room that night. He was at Denny's. Well, if it was 2 years later, even if he didn't have a receipt because of the way credit cards are, I'm just giving an example, he could go on the internet and find the date and find the time that he charged that card and show he was at Denny's at that time. Well, because this is 30 years ago, the credit card company got rid of that. I'm just giving an example. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying the things he would use to defend himself are harder to find and harder even to remember because it was 30 years ago. And that is the conundrum that we face. I need to talk. 310-388-3499 if you want to talk. I understand this is a heavy topic, but I wanted to bring it and go through some of these cases that are coming out. Citi Exec alleges former bosses sexually assaulted her and one threatened her life. An explosive lawsuit filed against the mega bank by managing director Ardith Lindsay details a locker room culture that fostered abuse and misogyny. Again, this is beyond individuals. A lot of these are companies being sued, because they're alleging that the companies created and fostered environments and gave power to men in particular, men and women, but men in particular, that allowed these things to happen. In an explosive lawsuit filed Monday, a Citi managing director alleges that her long career at the bank was rife. Come on, let's go with it. I'm sorry that they make you sad. I just wanted to have a responsible conversation today. Let's talk about it. Rife with sexual harassment and sexual assault that led to death threats from her bosses, whom she claims coerced her into a years-long sexual relationship. The suit also accused Citi of fostering a notoriously hostile work environment on and around the trading floor. At the center of artist Lindsay's complaint is former Citi managing director Mani Singh, whom she claims leveraged her professional power over her to coerce her into a multi-year sexual relationship. During that period, Lindsay alleges that Singh's alcohol and drug use, of which their colleagues were aware, made him volatile and abusive and were the final straw in her ending their relationship. Some of that abuse, the suit alleges, occurred while the two were traveling together on Citi business. The suit comes at an especially bad time for Citi CEO Jane Fraser, who is currently slashing roughly 10% of headcount as part of her aggressive reorganization plan nicknamed Project Bora Bora. When Lindsay ended the affair in October 2022, she claims in the suit that Singh began a campaign of emotional abuse, including text messages in which he belittled her appearance, mused about telling colleagues about their relationship, and even threatened to kill her and harm her family. The complaint is replete with quotes of purported text from Singh. "I am going to set you on fire," Singh alleged, text at her at one point. And also Lindsay claims once texted, "I am no longer silent, you are effing dead." In other texts, Lindsay says Singh explicitly threatened to ruin the lives of her children. Throughout both their sexual relationship and resulting fallout, Lindsay says Singh was celebrated and promoted by his superiors at Citi, the suit claims. After Lindsay ultimately reported the details of her relationship to Citi's Human Resources Department, she alleges that a Citi investigator characterized Singh's behavior as criminal, but after Singh was allowed to resign in the wake of those findings, Lindsay says his superiors, who were aware of his allegations, praised his contributions to the bank and wished him well in the future. A lawyer for Singh in a separate case did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In a statement, a Citi spokesperson said the bank will defend itself against the suit. So we have these suits all coming out. And again, the main crux of this is this Adult Survivors Act, and explaining why these high-profile suits are coming out. But I just wanted to actually read through some of these suits to see some of the allegations instead of us just reading the headlines and walking off as if we understand. Longtime Brooklyn Democrat accused of 2004 rape in new lawsuit. The allegations against Parker, a longtime Brooklyn Democrat who chairs the influential Committee on the Energy and Telecommunications, are detailed in a lawsuit filed late last week. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. Who chairs the influential Committee on Energy and Telecommunications, are detailed in the lawsuit late last week in state Supreme Court. The complaint does not say how Parker came into contact with the Brooklyn woman, now accusing him of a violent sexual assault. She alleges she had been coordinating with Parker's office to deliver donations and other supplies as part of a relief effort following torrential flooding in Haiti in 2004. The Times Union generally does not identify alleged victims of sexual assault or the other forms of gender abuse without their consent. Parker's office did not immediately respond to the request for a comment. The lawsuit alleges that the woman traveled to Haiti to deliver the supplies. The lawsuit alleges Parker asked her to come to his apartment to view photographs of the trip. After he had been there a few minutes, Parker allegedly grabbed both of her wrists, took her down to the hallway to her bedroom, and raped her, the complaint states. The woman said she has suffered psychological, physical, and emotional harm as a result of the alleged incident, including acute anxiety panic attacks. But let's not forget this in context of this. So this isn't out of New York. This is Hollywood. And the reason why I did this, I brought this story, and this is the story that came out in 2018, that there was this agent that was of Holly Berry and also Taraji P. Henson that had set up a sort of system where all Black actresses had to basically be sexually assaulted to be professionals, or that came through him, all the ones that came through him. Let me say that. And he closed his firm and basically apologized. And it just went away. And this is to show that it's not just New York. New York just has the statute. This is to show that this is across the country, but it's also here in California, in Hollywood. Hollywood manager who worked with Halle Berry, Taraji P. Henson, closes agency after accusations of sexual harassment. I said, remember, this is my tweet. Remember this one too. Hollywood manager who worked with Halle Berry, Taraji P. Henson, closes agency after accusations of sexual harassment in 2018. They allege that Sirianni pushed for sex as a condition for representation and that he did not take them on when they refused. So those he did work with say he made regular requests for sex. So when she wins the Oscar, he's the guy that I think she hugs either first or second. That's right behind her, meaning Halle Berry. I want to make sure we tie it all together because a lot of people forgot this, as Jerome says he did, and it is in the same vein. It's just we don't have the statute here. Vincent Sirianni, who helped propel Halle Berry and Taraji P. Henson to Hollywood stardom, shut his management agency. And excuse me if I'm wrong, I believe he was paying back when Taraji was starting or whatever, he was paying her rent or something of the sort. It was really wild. You can read the whole thing yourself and read the older stories. Go Google it. Shut his management agency on Monday following allegations that he sexually harassed aspiring Black actresses over a period of 2 decades. That's 20 years. 20 years and a lot of people that went through there and dealt with this kind of allegations. I mean, and there's one person that actually came under my tweet and she stated, and again, this is her allegation, but she stated this on a tweet. He approached me at the Essence Black Women in Hollywood luncheon when TPH was being honored and pushed for sex. He thought I was an actress and wanted to represent me. He invited me to his office for a meeting. Wanted me to meet him later that evening for dinner and sex. I said, that's a powerful testimony. Thank you for sharing. So Sirianni read a statement to the Washington Post saying that he made the decision to close after 40 years in business to protect the careers of the 24 actors and actresses he represented. It is with incredible great sadness at this time that I believe it's in the best interest of all my actors and actresses that I represent to close my management company. Sirianni said, the business is hard enough and I don't want to distract in any way from their careers in the entertainment field. So we're going to talk about the actors and actresses instead of the victims of and people who came to Hollywood and walked away tainted as a result of what happened to you. That's what we're going to do. All right. And the reason I'm bringing this up in context of this is to show that it's not just New York, but also show that you guys are forgetting major stories that tie back to this, and also to show that it's not just Black men. Sirianni's decision to shutter Vincent Sirianni Associates comes amid 12 new allegations of sexual misconduct against the Hollywood manager. The Post reported, meaning the Washington Post, last week that 9 women of color accused Sirianni of dangling Berry and Henson's names and achievements before them as he pressed for sex. The 9 women said Sirianni, who is white, used his role as a gatekeeper for Black actresses in a fiercely competitive industry to prey upon young women of color seeking an entry in Hollywood. They allege that Sirianni pushed for sex as a condition for representing them and that he did not take them on when they refused. And it sounds a lot like this woman's testimony. And I commend her for actually giving us that testimony. They allege that Sirianni pushed for sex as a condition for representing them and that he did not take them on when they refused. Those he did work with say he made regular requests for sex, at times masturbating in front of one woman during their meeting in the office. The Post has since heard from 12 additional women, 3 of whom are white, who allege that Sirianni made sexually inappropriate advances toward them as well. The new accusations dating back to New York in '89 come from women who auditioned for him and those he represented, as well as from one of his former employees. Notified of new allegations, Sirianni said, I apologize for my bad behavior. It was never my intention to disrespect anyone. How is it not your intention to disrespect anyone when you're running a whole agency that is shutting out Black women from acting if they aren't willing to sit in your office and be sexually assaulted? It don't make no sense. He said last week that he accepts responsibility for pursuing sexual relationships but denies the allegation that he sought sexual favor in exchange for representing actresses. He apologized to the women, but characterized all of his interactions as consensual. And, you know, this is a rare instance where, unlike the civil cases that are allegations and that are early on, we're looking at something after the fact that gives us kind of a lens of an after the fact. And that doesn't mean that every man is the same, but the positions of power, how they're leveraged, and how this law tried to look at and deal with that position of power that people were in and give people a window is a very interesting one. I talked about the balancing being between, first and foremost, the victim and giving the victim a voice, but also the ability for a defendant to defend themselves and to have the evidence to defend themselves, and how hard that is when you allow 25 and 30-year-old cases. I wanted to have a discussion today about many of the cases. There's many others that have come out and that will come out throughout the day. Again, they said there's 2,700. Not all are celebrities, and many are going to be celebrities and executives. But we talked about many that were black, that were white. We talked about a male victim even. But this Adult Survivors Act, you're going to hear about it over the next few days, few weeks, even few months. And I wanted to give you a place to understand what you were hearing about. This is Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.net, subscribe, donate, and share. Please, thank you, and support this video.